Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. So today's video, I'm going to teach you a little bit more about action poses, and I'm just going to draw through a few of these poses and get started and talk about that process, and then at the end we'll do a review of the poses and talk a little bit about that. So here, just kind of roughing out a running pose, I like to always start with a bit of a warm-up, and something that's always a bit easier for me is more of a profile. So even though there's some twisting in the anatomy here, it's still a little bit more simplistic in my mind because it's a side view. So I talk about that a little bit. Like if you ever have that particular thing where it's a bit easier for you to do, I don't necessarily say lean on it, but it's definitely a great way to warm up, and it's also a good way to visualize your poses. You can kind of start with whatever's easier for you and then elaborate from there. So it can be a confidence builder. So here I just want a little bit more. If you notice, I drew a quick action line to get started. That can be a great device for aligning the pose and not letting if you have a problem with your pose getting a little bit too whimsical or whatever, or everything kind of strays away from the body a bit too much. Action lines can be good for that. They're also just great for the immediate gesture of the pose. So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to get a little bit of I was thinking more of like a flying upward punch, and then I just started to think more of a character flying up. And these are all from my visualization process. There's no reference being used here. So you're going to see a little bit of inconsistencies, a bit of flaws, but I think that can be a good thing. Like, you still need to be able to draw it this way and then check with reference later if need be, or if you're just really struggling on a pose, reference can be a great thing to get you through that. But what I like to do is at least strengthen my mind's eye, my visualization process, by just drawing from memory, and just be aware that I have a horrible memory, so it probably affects even my drawing, but just day to day I have like this horrible memory. So things like this are a little bit maybe tougher for me, I guess, but it's still great exercise for that. And I don't even know if the two are combined. I would imagine they are. Memory's got to be memory, but with this, I think it's more of, can you visualize the anatomy in a certain pose? Can you make tweaks to it and make it look correct, even though it's not? And I think that's a big part of comics anyways, because if you were to take this and try, well, for one, I always talk about, it's so tough finding a pose that you need like this. Like, good luck finding this pose of somebody, or even creating this pose can be tricky with a camera and whatever setup. So you need to strengthen that ability to where you actually take something, you draw it, and even though it's not correct, you make it correct enough. You get it stylized enough to where it'll still work for your book, for your storytelling. And some people become great at that. Obviously, you look at comics, there's artists that just do a fantastic job of it. None of it probably looks entirely correct. If you were to hold it up to a real person, there would be a lot of comparisons that just wouldn't line up. So it's about knowing enough about the body to be able to construct this stuff, but then also having enough confidence in your style to make adjustments, to kind of just fake it, I guess, is for lack of a better term. So you see, I'm always adjusting things. Even when I scaled down that pose, I quickly adjusted the arm, because one of the things that I notice when scaling down a pose is I usually can spot proportions a little bit easier while it's smaller, which is also why it's probably to start more in a thumbnail stage. So with this one, this is obviously a female character, and she's kind of swiping a punch or throwing a punch across body. And this is a real popular one, and something that I can typically do from memory with some level of consistency or whatever. But it's still, like looking at this stage, I can already see, I was making the legs too short from the start, especially for a superhero woman. You want these very long, powerful legs on the female characters. Just think of like Wonder Woman or Supergirl, any of them really, but I always think of Wonder Woman because of the Amazonian features and the strength that's always drawn in her body. So that being said, looking at it, it's like, no, the legs are too short, and maybe the limbs in general, but I think the forward arm is actually maybe even a touch long. But again, that's the whole thing with comic book drawing, that some of the proportions are going to be a little bit off because you are trying to stylize, because you are trying to, give this effect that it's somebody that's very superhero, somebody that's very even animated. So what ends up happening there is that some of the proportions can quickly skew, at least with my drawings. And that's one of the things I'm constantly trying to refine and get better at, because I think that's one of the things that really stands out from an accomplished artist to an amateur artist is proportions, range of poses. Like if you're a new artist, you're gonna be stuck kind of at static poses and basic poses. You're gonna be less likely to venture out and do some extreme foreshortening or some dynamic poses. For instance, like one of the things that you see in very beginning stage character art is all the limbs out to the side, nothing crossing over the body. And it's not any harder to draw the limbs crossing over the body, like that leg right there. It shoots in front of the other leg, and that, in each one of the characters, something a little bit, except for that top left one, crosses over the body. And that's a really quick way to make something look more interesting or more dynamic. And it's easy. But as a new artist, you don't always think about that. So as you progress and you start to study more figure drawing, you start to realize that that's a really quick way to create a dynamic to your 2D illustrations. And from there, there's all kinds of other things that you have to learn, where the anatomy goes, how it really looks in different poses, how anatomy contorts and flexes, and it goes on and on and on. But it's well worth it, obviously, or we wouldn't be doing it. So yeah, so here just adjusting this pose. Again, the legs feel a bit small, so I'll end up trying to tweak that. The upper arm looks a bit small to me from this stage of it. So then I start to draw through and clean up the body, and I almost want to start drawing an anatomy, but these are really meant to be mannequin drawings and not anatomy structure as much. I tend to draw it in anyways just because it helps me visualize sometimes, or all the time, but it's they're meant to be mannequin because with the mannequin stage, you want to log in lots and lots of these, because what they do is they allow you to edit your work, and they allow you to basically recycle your own artwork. And that might sound bad to some people, but really to me it makes the most sense. Like I do it a lot for storyboards. The more comics I do, the more I try to take advantage of it, because it just makes sense. It's your artwork, Why redraw everything all the time? Now, certain times you're going to go back to your art and you're going to say, it's not even usable. I've gotten so much better and I see things differently. That was a really bad drawing. But that doesn't always happen. Sometimes you can reuse it. Sometimes you can make a quick adjustment and fix something from your previous art and recycle your own art. So to me, it makes sense. So, but if they're in a mannequin stage like this, you can take full use of that. So I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so in the next stage, we're going to look at these objectively and do some draw-throughs. And I think this is highly important. That's why I wanted to include it in this video, that you need to always study your own work and see where you could improve upon it the next time when you revisit maybe something of a similar pose. So let's go ahead and move on to that. Okay, so now let's just do a quick kind of analysis of what we got here. I'll do a few draw-throughs on this. And what I like to do here is when I get done practicing poses like this is just go back and study and see what I might have got right, what could be better. Always analyze your work. That's really the process of this. So one of the things that I tried to convey with these is the change in direction from the shoulder to the hips in a lot of the poses. So I try to make that as evident as possible. You can see it more so right here. Nice curve in the spine, change from the shoulders to the hips to the head. They should all be on a slightly different tilt for action poses. Even for poses that are static or somebody kind of sitting against a wall leaning, you should try to tilt those just a little bit, and it will automatically make that pose look a bit more dynamic without a whole lot more effort. So even here where it's not as evident, it's still slightly evident. And as far as what could be better, and poses like this guy right here flying up in the air, it's okay. It's not a horrible pose, and it's definitely something I can work on and improve upon. I've got a little bit of proportion issues with the limbs. That seems to be one of the things that I need to focus on and learn a little bit more of. This arm, I think, would look a bit more dynamic if it was up here with a better foreshortened forearm. And these are all things that you can do. You know, once you get a pose to this level, you can always tweak it. You can always work out the kinks. And that's why I like really working out these poses in this mannequin stage, because it doesn't make me think too hard about making edits. Like, I'm real open to editing the pose as I finish the artwork. As if I refined each one of these to a fuller level of finality or whatever, I'd be less likely to make adjustments. But in the mannequin stage, I'm very open to adjustments. It's not a big deal. Poses like this where she's twisting, you can always have these things in my mental mind's eye, I guess, as to how far the other shoulder might be back and how much of the twist of the back you would see. So in this part right here, it probably would make a little bit more sense to have the back come out further like this, because the back will segment like this here, and then get this other arm over to here. That would look a bit more correct and dynamic, and it would, in turn, it would counterbalance the fact that the hips are twisted this way, where you see you're just getting the one side of the glute, the leg is forward here, so the twist is more in the other direction here. So to show that contrapposta, I'm probably slaughtering that contrapposta, whatever it is, you would twist it here and probably show a little bit more of that back. So that could be corrected as I go to finish the artwork. So again, they're not bad poses. They're decent in my opinion, and I always enjoy creating these because I always learn so much. Now, these were all from visualization. I didn't look at any reference. I started to study some reference when I was getting to this pose, but I didn't end up going with it. I just shucked the reference and I went from my mind's eye. And you can see even right here, I'm noticing more and more as I study this, the arm's still a little bit short here. At least for dynamic anatomy, that would probably be closer to realistic proportions, maybe even still a little shy. So let's go ahead and, the beauty of digital is it's real easy to just grab that and adjust it, move it around, put a little more tilt to it. You notice I do that a lot in my work. I'm constantly adjusting things, to always try to tweak it and get a little bit better. So there it is. So that's this particular lesson where I show some action poses and how to do that. There'll be more of these on the way. There'll also be links in the description box below for things like my Gumroad, and also a mailing list where I send out poses and different things in a newsletter each month. So be sure to sign up for that. It's on ramstudiocomics.com. And I always appreciate everybody's support of watching the channel here. Comment in the section below. Let me know what you think of what you'd like to see in the future, and that's what I'll get on the schedule for you. So as always, keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.